If you'd like to help support the Front Lounge with KONGOS, tell your friends about it. Just spread the word. Cheers.
Cheers. Clink.
So welcome to the Front Lounge with KONGOS. This is episode 14 and we're drinking.
Yes.
We have a really special guest, a friend of ours, and really one of the top barman, mixologist, drink makers in the country. I don't think that's an exaggeration to say, because you can go read it. We'll post all the links to read about our guest here, Christiaan Rollich. How did we meet you?
My wife.
Yeah, that's what it is. Dylan went
actually,
to...
we went to see the show. You guys were on stage when I came in. Probably on your bare feet, actually, on a carpet. And they had a football table upstairs.
Which venue was this?
Like on Sunset? Right over Sunset?
Satellite.
Oh, Satellite. Oh,
I forgot the name of the place.
I do, yeah. For some reason, I thought that was later, but that was when we met. And the reason it felt later is because I got drunk, as usual. It happens around you.
Really? You?
Yeah.
It's not my fault. Well, the backstory is Melissa and I, Christiaan's wife, went to school together since 6th grade. I don't think we went to 5th grade together when I moved here, but since 6th grade, we've known each other. And then all throughout high school. And so, you know, we kept in touch and stayed friends. And then you guys came to a show and met Christiaan.
We met Christiaan, the barman. You said you prefer to be called barman, and then
A barman.
not mixologist.
A mixologist sounds so...
Yeah.
Check me out, I'm making drinks. Like, you know, and in essence, like, you know, a barman makes drinks for everybody. Like, you know, we're drinking Heineken, we're drinking Lafroy 18.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't matter. Like, if you want a glass of wine, it's good too. You know, like it's not just a mixologist.
Doesn't have to be a fancy concoction. You know.
How do you guys call yourselves?
Barman?
No, exactly. But like, you don't.
Musicologists.
Yeah. Jesse is the mixologist.
You don't call yourself rock stars. Like,
Not
I see what you're
publicly.
saying. It's has a kind of
self-aggrandizing.
pretentious
yeah, totally.
connotation.
That's exactly what I mean. Like,
Yeah.
you know. So
Well,
what do you do for a living?
That's
I'm a rock
usually
star.
when you know. That's when you usually know somebody's really good, when they don't need the title to kind of describe them, because
Well, it took me.
if you're confident calling yourself a barman, and then also you go and Google your name and you see that you won this and that award, and you're very well recognized, and we're just basically lucky to have met you so that we can drink your drinks. But
you're too kind.
yeah, it means that you got the skills to back it up, I think.
It took me 5 or 4 years or something like that to before I finally had one of your mixed drinks, though. Because you have a rule. You don't make drinks at your house, right?
No.
Yeah.
No, we'll be drinking like this. What we're doing right now. This is like a no.
I can imagine.
Like,
It's when people are with us. It's like, well, play a song. It's like, no.
Yeah, you have a guitar.
So if you're in the LA area, you can go drink your drinks at AOC and Lukes and the Tavern, right?
Correct. Yeah.
So those are, we'll put up links to all those things, and you can stop in and go drink some of the best drinks that you'll ever had. I went in there actually quite a while ago, about a year or so ago, and I said, can you make me something with a smoky scotch in a mixed drink? Which seems like an impossible thing to do, because smoky scotch just doesn't mix. It's very
delicious,
unfriendly, but
they use it for like penicillins, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's kind of like the classic drink they use it for.
Yeah, I think a lot of Lafroy was used as a rinser. Or they, yeah.
Like
wait, what do you mean by that? Explain.
So the smell that you get right now from the Lafroy, very peaty, but like for the just general knowledge, it's smoky. That's what you want in a drink without being too overpowering. So they use a blended scotch as the base, and then they coat the glass with the Lafroy. So when you smell it, you get that smokiness, but when you actually drink it, it's a lot softer than the nose suggests.
Okay, so yeah, for those that don't know, AOC and Lukes in LA are often recognized by like LA Times and you name it in terms of publications as, you know, the place to go to for not only food but also for drinks. And Christiaan's made drinks for presidents before he's made drinks for Obama. We'll get to that later. Funny. Many presidential events. We'll get to the details of that later, which I think will be Very interesting. But maybe before we get into
short
that,
story is Obama's an alcoholic.
Maybe give us a little bit of your background. Where you're from, how you came to the States, and all that. How you got into this business.
Well, I had no interest in this business at all. Actually, it's kind of interesting. Like when you look back at it, then like it makes perfect sense. But when you're just a 16-year-old in the Netherlands, is where I'm from, like, and you think like, oh, I'm gonna be, making cocktails for the rest of my life. That wasn't really like.
What part of the Netherlands?
I'm next to Amsterdam. It's a small village called Heemstede.
Okay.
And it's like cobblestones, petting zoos, windmills, like the whole. Like Melissa, my wife, she came there and she thought it was a movie set.
It's like picture Amsterdam, and that's what it looks like. For
but like a little
most
smaller. You guys
people.
been to Amsterdam, so like it's a little smaller.
We've been to Nijmegen too. That was also quite picturesque.
Yeah, totally similar to that.
Okay.
Like but like a little smaller than that. Nijmegen is actually a city, and Heemstede is a village. You know what the difference is between a village and a city?
What?
A city wall. A city wall gives you the right to call yourself a city. It's from back in the day. So The Hague, which is where our government is located, technically speaking, is a village. And like being born in Amsterdam, making sure that we rub that in once in a while. Like you're from a village, You
don't have a wall.
We played in
So
maybe that's what Trump's on about. He's just like an inferiority complex. He just wants the wall to be like, I got a wall.
That's really interesting. You mentioned that. There's one of the princesses of the Netherlands. Like she tweeted something to him, saying he should focus on building a wall in the sea versus like a wall on land.
Oh, you
keep the water out.
Yeah, keep the water when it starts rising.
Yeah,
that would show foresight, I think.
Yeah.
So he's not the village idiot; he's the city idiot.
Right. Yeah.
So anyway, sorry, you were saying you're born just outside Amsterdam, and
so my first job actually was like bringing newspapers around, but there was like a little tavern in the village, and like when you go there, like. We eat and we drink and we sit and we talk and I was a kid and I always thought it was really kind of cool. And so my second job, I knocked on the door there and I said like, hey, I was 14, can I have a job? And the guy is like, well, you're 14, maybe you're a bit young to work in a restaurant. Come back next year. So like 15, back. I'm 15 now, can I have a job? And he's like, I was a young 15. I wasn't like by any means like this guy knows what he wants. I was just like a kid. And he's like, well, I like your determination. Why don't you try out and become a dishwasher? So I did that for like 6 months. And then I got fired with Christmas. And I was like, fuck. That's my first and last job I ever got fired from. Yeah, I know, right? Yeah. And I worked in nightclubs in Amsterdam, which is interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting. That's a crazy scene.
Yeah,
any that we would recognize. I mean,
Paradiso.
Paradiso is pretty cool. That was there when I was there, but we had Club It back in the day. This is like in the 1990s, late 80s, and this is like a remake. Or the idea is like to do something like Studio 54.
Okay, yeah.
So everything goes gay, straight. Like people having sex, it was all fine. I remember like I was a 20-year-old, came in there and I'd never seen that because I was like literally from a village. So I'd never seen such things. Like, and I remember running back to the bar. I was like, do you know what they're doing up there? And everybody was like, oh, yeah, no.
This is Amsterdam. Welcome to Amsterdam.
That is a funny thing. Like, everyone thinks of Amsterdam and they immediately think about the red light district because it's world famous. Yeah. But it's funny because it's separate. Like there's a red light district, and it's a separate little area, and it's kind of sectioned off. And the rest of Holland and Netherlands and even Germany, like with Hamburg, is fairly conservative and like old-fashioned. So it's not all what you picture. It's just like one gigantic red light district.
They totally do have an old-fashioned thing to them, like the Europeans do, but they're stuck in their they're. Stuck is the bad way of saying it, but like they have roots, you know, like, and they you know, they lived centuries. Those other countries are there for centuries, and but they are also evolved. You know, like how when you leave, a language doesn't evolve, kind of thing. Like when you stay in your roots, like things evolve. Like I feel Europe definitely has evolved over time.
Yeah, it seems. I mean, because of the speed of transport, you know, Europe seems like a kind of mix between these old societies that are, like you said, centuries old, and then because people are coming from all over the world, that you know their borders are relatively open. So now you have cultures just completely colliding in this very small space, and so everyone has to adapt in order for it to work.
The Dutch history is quite unique, I think, because we're Dutch. We're quarter Dutch, and so it's like, you know, the Dutch colonized South Africa, and they were an empire, and they were colonial, and they had all of the negatives that come with colonialism that you would think of, but they were a business empire. You know,
Absolutely.
so it is a very unusual history. Like they were the richest country in the world in the 1600s, and the Dutch East, like people can't comprehend the scale of that corporation. It was the first kind of corporation, the Dutch East India Company, and it lasted hundreds of years, right?
Yep.
And it in terms of modern day wealth, it dwarfs any corporation you can think of.
It was the first actually corporation people could have stocks in, I believe.
Right. Yeah. They pioneered that whole shareholding idea.
Yeah. They had their own police system. Like it's
I saw an evaluation of the company that if it took into account inflation, it would be worth something like $7 or $8 trillion in today's terms. Which there's no company right now in the world worth over $1 trillion.
Yeah, what is Apple worth?
Almost $1 trillion.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's obviously difficult to make valuations across time because you know.
But you know, it's interesting because in order to do that, you have to be open-minded. You have to be open to, you know.
Other cultures.
Absolutely. Yeah. You just can't like just do that and obliterate everything else. Like,
I would imagine that the British are particularly thankful for the Dutch expansion and colonization because they brought spices. I mean, that's what that's what we learned in school. Like they're famous for going to the East and bringing spices back and basically sharing the foods of the world. So now you don't have to just eat British food,
right?
There's a book I read called Picture This. It's by the guy who wrote Catch-22, and it's this kind of historical fiction book paralleling Rembrandt's life and Aristotle's life because there's Rembrandt painted this picture, which is supposedly meant to be of Aristotle, and this book it's historical fiction. It's really good. It's really funny. It's really sardonic. But if you look at Rembrandt's, it's called A Philosopher in Meditation. There's a painting he has, and for me, it's very obviously a yin-yang symbol that he's painting. And we'll post a link to this picture, but you can quite clearly see he uses the staircase as the spiral divider, and there's a man in light, and then there's a woman in darkness, conveying the duality of the sexes and light and dark and so on. And it's pretty fucking bizarre that this guy in Holland was painting a symbol from the Far East, you know, so that conveys what the Dutch Empire, what it brought from around the world, you know.
Just connecting.
Yeah, just connecting.
It's funny now, like, I think Austin Powers is probably to blame also for like a really negative or funny, like light idea of what the Dutch people are. You're like,
people make fun of me.
Yeah, isn't that weird? And it's funny, like, because I personally think that the Dutch accent when they speak English is actually funny because there's something about the pronunciation when you learn to speak Dutch like in Holland and we learn Afrikaans in South Africa. They're very related languages.
Oh, absolutely.
But the pronunciation in actual Dutch is so funny, like the words that you have to put little like j and like that it's a bitchy instead of a bicky. Like the little things that when you speak English, it just turns it funny. So obviously they've been made fun of, but like America...
The Afrikaans beat the humor out of it.
Yeah,
with
but
their version.
I'm just saying, like, the Dutch have been so easily discounted by popular culture, forgetting entirely, basically, most of the Western world would not be here were it not for the Dutch.
Yeah, New Amsterdam.
Yeah, I mean, New York was...
Yeah, New Amsterdam.
Previously, New Amsterdam.
Peter Stuyvesant and all that. Yeah,
it's really interesting. Like you learn this, and of course, you know, when you take history in school when you're a kid in the Netherlands, they're like, oh, we did this, we did that, da, da, da. And then like you go actually to New York, and you see the architecture. Yeah. Makes total sense because it reminds me of Amsterdam. That the way the houses are built and everything they did wrong in Amsterdam, they wanted to do right in New York. Like this, the straight streets and make it very accessible to everybody. Yeah. Because Amsterdam is built in circles, like how the water goes.
Yeah. That's partly what makes it so beautiful. Is that you know we had last time we were in Amsterdam on tour, we had a Swedish bus driver.
Right.
And he claimed to really know his way around Amsterdam.
Yeah.
And 2 hours later, we found out he did not. And his whole thing was, I think it's this way. And we literally walked around for 2 hours. We didn't know where we were going because it is so all the canals and the circular streets, and you know, it's quite a maze.
Absolutely.
It is one of the reasons it's
party. You know, not in the red light district. Yeah. We wanted to just go party, and I feel like he had a compass in his head that he may not have known his way around Amsterdam, but he was being led magnetically to the red light district.
Right.
And we walked around for 4 hours, and we were like, this guy just wanted to go to the red light district. And now we missed on a whole night of.
There's some interesting bars there, though.
Okay, so you ran up to the bartender and you said, "Do you know what they're doing back there?"
Yes. Yeah. Like, and there were people having sex.
And what is that for the listeners?
That's oral sex.
So where did that leave? Working in the night.
So that was really interesting, and I raised my money to actually move to the United States, and then when I came here, I promoted some nightclubs. I worked as a clown on Melrose for a while.
You worked as a clown?
As a clown.
Exactly. Like what type of clown?
Like a guy who stands out of a store and get people inside the store.
Oh, okay.
What kind of store was it?
It was a jeans store. And like back then, like Levi's was like a big thing with Japanese people. And there was like these tour buses. They would stop on Melrose, and Japanese tourists would go in every jeans store and looking for the specific kind of jeans they made a long time ago.
Yeah, so I've heard about that.
I would say Mirodake, Yasui jeans, like, and then like meaning cheap jeans, like come check it out kind of thing.
That's funny.
Yeah, so I did that for a while, and then I started working at a restaurant right around the corner here, LeDoux Cafe. So you know Las Palmas right here? Mm-hmm. So like,
don't give away too close where we are.
sorry. But I started working on a place on Las Palmas called LeDoux Cafe, and it was owned by Michelle Lamy. And Michelle Lamy was like a French lady who drove on a bike through the Sahara, like has henna tattoos, henna hair, like super crazy, wild, golden teeth and stuff, and like really interesting. And this place was like a celebrity hangout. It was like in a parking lot, and if you drive by it, you would never see it. There was just like some green, and her vision when she came there was all parking lot, and she built a fountain in the parking lot. Then she moved a house from like 3 blocks down the street and dropped it next to the fountain, and she built this like dream restaurant of hers, and where people would, like the way we're sitting right now, people would hang and sit all night. They wouldn't just be 2 hour, you know, get out. And
2 hours is very generous.
Did it turn? Are you saying that? What building is it now?
I'm not sure. It's on, Michelli's or so, the Italian place.
No.
Yeah.
It's half a block south of Hollywood Boulevard.
Oh yeah.
On the east side of the street.
Huh, they might have torn that down because
no, it's there. Like they redid it many times over. Like in 2000 something, she went bankrupt. And she had a great nose for showbiz, but business, like the financial aspect, wasn't really.
So did you work there then? Or
Oh yeah, like it was crazy. Like so, I started as a bar back, and I learned how to bartend. Really. Make drinks there. There were like 2 bartenders. One was like a really classically trained like barman and very serious about his craft, and the other guy is like, yeah, that's the bar. Why don't you go stand there? I go smoke cigarettes outside. You know? And we had like famous people dropping their black cards and stuff. People come in with like $100 watts of cash, like, you know, like literally, and they would like order like a whiskey, and it was like $15, and they would like throw you $100 and like keep the change. I've never seen people spend money like that ever in my life. It's just ridiculous. And then the bartender at the end he would say like, Christiaan, that was a great job. Here's $20. You know? But you know, like, hey, I'm here right now, and it was very
so
good in the learning process.
Do you consider that your training in a way?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Not just of the craft of bartending, but also the business of it and the sort of the showmanship of it and all that kind of thing.
Well, like, it's interesting because like it does come with kind of like a showmanship in a way. Like you're very, very aware where your place is in a restaurant or in a bar. But you always don't want it to be about that, but it is kind of. Well,
yeah, it's like one of those things where you have to acknowledge it, that it has an impact on the customer,
right?
You know. But at the same time, you don't want it to be the foundation of your creation.
Absolutely not.
But
you made me a drink, and then you whipped cream in the what is it called, the tumbler or the
shakers
in the shaker. That's right. And so you froze the shaker, right? You got your really cold shakers, and then you put the cream in there, and then you put a whisk in, and you shake it up, and you whip the cream like.
Yeah, basically I was whipping cream.
Yeah, like, but what you said was guaranteed tip.
Yes.
Guaranteed good tip when you do that.
Yes, that's true. Well, you know, like you're shaking shakers and people are sitting in front of you, and you know it has to look somewhat appetizing. Somebody has to look at you and think like,
"Yeah, you can't be scooping whipped cream out of a tub."
Yeah,
like, putting it on their drink.
I think particularly in LA that plays a lot into restaurants, how well they're rated. And it's a funny thing. We always talk about Indian food on this thing, but one of the funny things about almost every Indian restaurant you go to is zero ambience,
like fluorescent lights and stuff.
Yeah, fluorescent lights, zero attention to any of those aspects. And it's always fun to go to those because literally all that counts is how good is the food.
Yeah, totally.
And it's nice sometimes to see that, but you also appreciate when you go to another type of restaurant, the entire experience is different. You know?
Absolutely.
Well, alcohol is that. Otherwise, you're just drinking to, you know, dull the pain or something.
Yeah, I forget who it is. There's a comedian who talks about, like, remember when you had to actually enjoy the taste of alcohol to drink it, and then they came up with flavored schnapps.
Yeah.
And like everyone could just be like, oh, a peach this or marshmallow this.
Yeah.
Well, originally alcohol was spit-based. In fact, I think alcohol may have been one of the main motivating factors behind agriculture because people got so enamored with the states they were put into by alcohol. But so you remember when you had to chew grain up and spit it out and let it ferment? That was also what alcohol used to be. Thank God they invented peach schnapps because nobody wants to be drinking
fermented.
Yes, fermented spit.
Yeah, but like it's actually it's really interesting when you look at alcohol, the distilling process, like how people thought like, hey, you know what? I have wine over here, and if I throw it in a still, I have like a hard liquor kind of thing. That thought process, without internet, without people sharing information, kind of came about at similar places at the same time throughout the world. I feel.
Yeah. That. I mean, distillation is only a few hundred years old.
Yeah.
And they underestimated because beer and wine was so prevalent and it was such a daily drink.
Absolutely.
Distillation led to like widespread alcoholism because they placed it on the same level. As
like I'm gonna have a cup of beer or I'm gonna have a cup of vodka.
Yeah,
no, I didn't have.
But
vodka
I'd never heard
vodka.
Or like maybe like in Russia, but like the gin and whiskey and brandy, and that was.
Well, that idea though. Just to touch on it, that the idea of distillation seemed to spring up around the world at a similar time without necessarily being communicated. You know, that seems to happen so often in history. And, you know, people are trying to sort of identify the cause of it, or what is this web of connectivity that allows these ideas to sprout up, you know, without apparent communication.
Yeah, you believe in aliens?
We'll save that maybe for... Maybe we'll save that for the deep thoughts, but we can just plant that little seed of why did distillation
mushrooms
occur to everyone at the same time?
Yeah.
Without the internet.
It's kind of interesting just to see, like, and of course there's people who like found distillation back. They can relate it back to China and stuff, and
so much older. I mean, like kind of simpler pot distillation.
Yeah.
So I guess,
but really, like used in the Western world, like it's kind of like the same.
There's a good there's a document. I only watched the first bit of it because like in all of Ken Burns stuff, it's like really in depth. You know, you got to commit. But there's one called Prohibition, and the first one was quite interesting. Just some of the stats on what people were drinking back then. The average American drank 3 times as much as they do now in the 18 or 1700s, and after distillation, and they were like half the size, and European
they worked in fields all day.
A lot of the soldiers in Europe, they were getting paid in ale.
Totally.
Yeah, they get paid in 5 liters of ale a day. They were just alcoholics until coffee came along and saved them and gave them capitalism.
Well, you can almost understand why the temperance movement came about, because it was such a pervasive problem. In the same way, like the opioid epidemic's happening now, like it's a serious thing. Something has to be done about it. It's funny to look back now and just think like, just chill out with the drinking, but it was so widespread. So quick breaking news. I was going to just say, because Danny told us this story while we're talking about drunkards. Tell us the short version of your Uber.
Short story is I got an Uber. Apparently somebody else got in it and threw up.
Oh, fuck, dude. I hate that.
Wait, while you were in there?
No. They took the Uber. Yeah, they took the Uber that I was meant to get and drove around and threw up in it, and I got a $150 cleaning fee. That's at least my story, and I'm sticking to it. You know, no, this is true. It's not like I was so drunk somebody shat my pants. It's not that, but yeah. So now I'm having to negotiate with Uber, and they sent me a picture of the vomit. I'm like, that's cool, but that, you know, I wasn't there, so I don't know what to tell you.
You have to do a DNA test on it.
So, but I mean, can't they prove that you
that's what I'm saying.
dropped off at your location? Or?
But yeah, that's what I'm trying to tell them, is that my timeline just doesn't make sense, because I ordered an Uber from these cross streets, and then somebody else got in it, and I got charged, and I realized what had happened, so I ordered another one. So like for their timeline to make sense, I would have had to gotten in an Uber, got dropped off at the wrong place, having thrown up in that Uber, then run back to the same place, ordered an Uber, and then gone to a place to eat after having just thrown up.
But so, they share live location now. They should be able to see.
I'm sure they're listening to this conversation, right?
Right?
Tell me what to order with my Amazon Echo, Uber.
That's pretty crazy. I didn't hear that.
You guys got Amazon or
no
or Google like that?
We don't have anything yet. I just whisper in Jeff Bezos's ear all of my secrets.
So Christiaan, so after you worked for, what was the name of the
LeDoux Cafe?
Okay, yeah. After that, where did you go?
I went to a beer and wine place in the South Bay here. It's a long story. Like, so before I met Melissa, I was married before Melissa, and my first wife got very sick, and like she had breast cancer. So we moved to the South Bay where her family lived, and I needed to find something that was just closer to home. So we went to the South Bay, which is by no means like interesting from a cocktail point of view, but you know, as a husband, you do what you need to do. So I went to the South Bay, stayed there for a while, and life happened. I traveled a bunch, talking about opiate addiction. Went to the Golden Triangle, northern part of Thailand. That was interesting. I don't have the opiate addiction. And then I ended up at Lucques in like 10 years ago, 11 years ago or so. And I had no idea what Lucques was. I mean, I heard of it, and I knew it was a great French place, but by no means I had an idea that this was an award-winning restaurant, and the chef was one of the best chefs in the country. So I just started working there, making cocktails and paying my way through college. I went back to college, and And one day they asked me, "Can you come up with the recipe?" I'm like, "Sure." Can I just grab stuff from the walk? This restaurant has quite a big walk-in with all fresh vegetables, all farm to table. And they're like, "Yeah, use whatever you want." And so I walked into the walk-in and just started like trying stuff. And
Who is the chef?
Sorry, it's Suzanne Goen.
Okay, yeah.
She was voted in 2006 best chef in California. Won the James Beard Award for best cookbook. Also with the James Beard Award, which is the Oscars for chefs. And then 3 years ago, she won Best Chef in the United States after being nominated 5 years in a row.
Jeez.
So, yeah.
Jeez. So how big, just approximately how big was the walk-in fridge?
It's not huge, but it's like, imagine like 2 walls of fruit and veggies.
So like maybe what 10 feet
like that wall, like from there to there. I don't know, like that's
25 feet of
Okay,
yeah.
so it's like walking into your own sort of gourmet grocery store and just being able to pick whatever you want. Yeah.
And it's all fresh.
She was kind of pioneering a lot of those movements, right? The farm to table. Yeah.
She worked with Alice Waters.
Okay, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And then she brought it to Los Angeles. She was one of the first ones to do farm to table, and it was really interesting if you look back at it right now, like 20 years later, because when she opened this restaurant with her business partner Carolyn Stein, they wanted to do farm to table, and everybody's like, well, you know, farm to table, it's really expensive, and how are you going to make money? And now you cannot open a restaurant without being farm to table.
Yeah,
yeah, well,
like
at least of that caliber. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Is that Portlandia skit where they make fun of farm to table, where they want to go meet the cow, find out the name of where their milk's coming from?
Right.
There's a very famous restaurant here called what is that vegan place called? I can't remember it now.
Cafe Gratitude.
Cafe Gratitude, yeah. And the owners of that place, they ended up eating meat.
Totally,
right,
I saw that.
Yeah, but they raised the cow on their property and that kind of thing.
The cow
saying,
was vegan.
Right? Yeah. No, they just, but they're like, it's funny on Yelp. Just like there's hundreds of vegans yelling at them
because they decided to change their personal habits.
Right. Yeah.
That place, Cafe Gratitude, it's too bad about the name and the menu and the description of the food because the food's actually really fucking good.
Yeah, I went there.
The menu names grate me like no other. If you read them, if you go to Cafe Gratitude, then maybe we'll never be allowed back in there again after we talk shit.
I've never been there.
But on the menu, each menu is, or each item on the menu is named "I am grateful" or "I am special," "I am beautiful," "I am kind," "I am." It's all these "I am" things, but it doesn't tell you like what it is. It's like is it a sandwich? Is it a stew? And maybe they've changed it by now. But so you have to read every fucking ingredient on each item.
Yeah.
And then you have to say it to the waitress or waiter. You have to say, "Could I have the I am humble. Beautiful or I am humble?" Yeah. But they don't have any negative shit on the menu. It doesn't say like I'm a fucking
bleep a weight gaining sandwich.
I am a fucking vacant human being.
Can I get the I'm a wanker, please?
That's a hot dog.
And so it's a very frustrating menu to read, but the food's really good. So go there for experience, I guess.
Yeah, that's interesting. I love that place though. Like,
the food's good.
I'm not a vegetarian, but like I ate it and I was like, oh. It's actually really good.
Yeah.
That's what they're counting on.
What were you doing in Thailand? Kickboxing?
Yeah, I did. Like after my first wife passed, I just traveled the world a little bit, and like I was Thai boxing just twice a day, 6 days a week, and I didn't have anything else to do. So I did some Thai boxing there as well, just training and traveling and hiking. And
has your bartending and your Thai boxing ever met in the middle? Like, have you? Because bars are obviously always.
No, I never had a fight at a establishment that I worked at. I mean, there were fights, but I was never involved in them. Like back in Amsterdam, that is, never here in the United States, and yeah. Let's leave it at that.
So you double as the bar The barman and the bouncer.
I don't bounce. Like,
that's I remember you told me there was I know there's a Dutch school of kickboxing. They kind of got fascinated with Muay Thai, right?
Yeah.
So, how long was that period that you traveled? Because you had this tragic event in your life, and it must have stimulated this new part of your life that you now had to explore. How long was that period?
At least 6 months. Like, I just traveled and didn't just do anything. And then when I came back to the United States, I got a job selling shoes, wholesale.
Here in LA, or
here in Los Angeles? I traveled the United States, like to New York, to Chicago, to Dallas, here in California, San Francisco, and I sold fancy lady shoes, wholesale.
So you really have done a lot of odd jobs. How did
man, you have no idea. Did I tell you I was a carny?
No.
You were a carny?
Yeah,
and a clown.
Yeah. That was the carny was before the clown thing. I wanted to, when I was a kid, I kind of wanted to live my life as a boy's dream.
Yeah.
Like, like what boys like fantasize about. Like, I don't know. Like, I always fantasize about traveling with the Carnival, and so I went to college to university for like 6 months or so, and I hated it. And then there was an ad in the newspaper that said like clean young men wanted to travel with the Carnival. I was like, oh, that's me. So I called them, and I actually went there. And so this is total campground, like think kind of like Snatch kind of thing. Carnies, craziness, white trash all the way. But super interesting. Super interesting.
And you traveled around Europe? Or all around
the Netherlands.
Just the Netherlands.
It's very competitive. Like, people will shoot you, like, if you go to another country. Like, so these are attractions, just like, say, like the Santa Monica Pier kind of thing. And every attraction is individual. So they meet at one city, and everybody separates and goes to different cities and to other carnivals. Yeah, I did that for 2 years.
Jeez.
Yeah, so you really are like the epitome of the Dutch expedition nature, and like adventure.
I want to see it all, man. I want to see it all.
Because I think it is true to the Dutch people. We always make a comment when we've been on tour around the world.
Right.
Anytime we get onto any type of public transport, we sometimes try to judge what country the people are from, and we are, I think, like 100 for 100 anytime we've been on a subway and we've seen some people and we say those people are Dutch.
Right.
Because it's not that they're loud or this or that, it's that they're having fun.
Yeah.
And like the people every time we've seen people on a subway or a bus or anything like that and they're having the most fun out of any other group on the subway, we go, those people are Dutch. And we can't hear their, like, you can't really hear what they're saying. Sometimes they'll be speaking English, very, very well, and you're like, they're Dutch.
Yeah.
I do remember there was a group of 4 in New York, and pre any words being spoken, I said those are Dutch for sure. Yeah. Just the way, and they were. I've
been at a poker table, and if they're speaking English, it's hard to tell. They could be Dutch or Swedish or anywhere from totally. From the
Northern Europe.
What are those countries called? I mean, the
Scandinavian
countries. Yeah. But just based on the personality and how much fun someone was having, and how much fun they were making the table have, I was like, oh, this guy's got to be Dutch.
I'll say this. When we were on the Dispatch tour in 2013, in the middle of winter, traveling around Germany, very, very depressed because it was just cold, dark, and miserable.
Totally.
And we drove into the Netherlands on a way to go play at Melkweg, which Milky Way, club.
I saw some shows there.
Yeah. And I'm not exaggerating. Literally, as we crossed into the Netherlands border, because obviously in Europe all the borders are open now. You just drive in between countries. It said, "Welcome to the Netherlands," and literally the clouds opened. And the sun started shining, and we were just like, "Thank God!"
It was comical the timing of that. We left Germany and the sun instantly came out and the driving instantly got worse. It was insane. It was.
No, do you know what? I was driving and in Germany we were used to going 160 kilometers an hour on the autobahn. We got to there and I thought, is everyone high? Because there's a 7-lane highway.
Right.
And everyone's in the slow lane going exactly the same speed. And I just realized everyone just actually follows the laws there.
Totally. You know why this is? And I figured this out just last time I was in the Netherlands. I borrowed my dad's car for 1 week. And like, no, not even like for 1 day. And they had 4 speeding tickets. And my mom got the... they get sent to your house basically, and like she's like, your dad's got speeding tickets. That's so strange. I'm like, yeah, that's weird. And they're all mine. But basically, in the Netherlands, like when you go onto the freeway, they scan your license plate, and when you leave the freeway, you scan your license plate. So if you're speeding,
they know.
They can judge. And they have cameras everywhere.
They're judging the average speed even. So okay, yeah.
Jeez.
That's crazy. In fact, I've heard of this because in Italy, I remember hearing about people will go there and they want to drive the Ferrari, like go on a traditional Italian trip, drive a Ferrari around. And the only way to do it is you have to calculate getting on the freeway because you've been tagged. You drive as fast as you want, stop, wait on the side of the road until your averages balance out, and then exit the freeway. So that it looks like on average you're going the right speed.
But now surely they have cameras now that are
they've got
tracking all that other stuff. Yeah,
it's funny that the Italians tolerated that.
That's not too bad, you know. You just take some snacks, some parmesan cheese, and then some wine.
A bottle of wine.
The other thing
as the Italians do.
The other thing I remember about that driving into when we played Melkweg was right after we played our show. So we did a rock and roll show at Melkweg, and then within an hour after that, the disco starts and all the bouncers come in. And the Netherlands is the only place in Europe where it felt like every single person could beat the shit out of me. Like, they're just tough. They're tough-looking people. I guess Russia was like that also, but like you're used to walking.
I guess every other.
Are you comparing us to Russians, dude?
No, there were some other countries where you felt like
it's because they're bloody tall bastards.
Yeah, they're tall, strong, and then you find out they've got a history of Muay Thai.
They make their babies drink from these special cows directly. Right?
Danny and I were in a nightclub, and we're both 6'2", and I felt tiny.
Yeah.
Next to even the women.
Yeah.
It was like a college nightclub.
5'9".
Yeah, and everyone was 6'4", 6'5". Yeah, Paradiso. It was crazy. So we're kind of weaving a bunch of other stuff into Christiaan's story here, how he got to where he is. Because now you've been at Luke for 10 years.
Yeah.
And also do AOC and the Tavern, which now you're the head barman. How did it lead to that? And then when people think about just coming up with a recipe, now it's become a real kind of business for you. You're writing a book, right?
Yeah,
or you finished writing the book.
Yeah. Well, it's back at the editor right now. So we finished the first draft, sent back, finished the second draft, and that's where we had taken photos. Should come out March next year, 2019.
Okay, March 2019. So this is a recipe book?
Yeah. Well, like the idea is like to not take it too seriously. It's for people to have fun. Like, if you can like make a cake from a cookbook, you can make a cocktail from my book. The idea is like everything is made from scratch. That's what I do. Like I make my own liqueurs, I make my own vermouths, Campari, everything. Everything is made from scratch. And that's kind of what I'm known for. And I also feel that's where the bar trend will go to eventually, because in this day and age where everybody comes up with something special, you kind of have to go the extra mile to like make it really special. And in a restaurant where I work, the kitchen makes everything from scratch, so why shouldn't I make everything from scratch? But like the book is kind of about that.
So what's the process of making like those things, the vermouth like and the Campari and the...
a lot of drinking. So the street vermouth, that was kind of like a perfect recipe because it just worked. Like you set out and you have an idea. It's like, oh, I want to make vermouth. Well, it's about 18%. How do I get there with white wine? By adding brandy, and it needs to have flavor. Like how do you get these flavors out in there? So you figure out what's the flavor profile of vermouth, or we're talking about sweet vermouth actually, so it has some dried fruit, it has some burnt sugar, burnt sugar. How do you make burnt sugar? I have no idea how to make burnt sugar. Nobody ever taught me how to make burnt sugar. So Google, how do you burn sugar? And then like actually it has to be drinkable after that. So I figured out how to do that. And then step by step you add flavors to it until you have a recipe that you like. And it's really like a month process, even more months. Like, because you sit, I don't know like how you guys write songs, but like, you know, it's like for me I have a recipe and I let it sit and I think about it. And I just let it sit and I try it again and then I think about it some more. And this is just a time-consuming thing. And then just one day, like, you're at the farmer's market and it's like, oh, that's exactly what it missed. And then you go back and then you finish your recipe.
So, and now you're using all the drinks at Lucques and AOC, you're using all your own from scratch vermouths.
Yeah,
and
like if somebody
things.
wants to drink Carpano Antica, I have that. I'm not like against, you know, not making or selling your own stuff. If somebody wants vodka, you can have vodka. It's fine. I don't care. But, you know, like there's a lot of bars that say like, oh, you shouldn't sell vodka because it's kind of like an inferior alcohol. If somebody wants a vodka soda, you can have a vodka soda. Just, I don't care.
What about
like,
vodka Red Bull? Yeah. Do you draw the line anywhere?
I used to drink a lot of vodka Red Bull.
The secret comes out.
But we don't sell Red Bull. No.
You made a couple drinks, and I've had, you know, similar stuff, but they weren't. It was more kind of flashy, kind of pointless things that they'd done to drinks. But you made a drink where you, in fact, a lot of your mixed drinks, they had a nose profile.
Yeah.
You know, where it was rosemary and stuff like that, where it didn't affect the taste.
Right.
But you get this rosemary
On the nose.
yeah,
Right.
or something else, and it is you realize how important smell is to taste. It's
Right.
like such a huge component of your.
So do you have other people involved, even just in the tasting and the experiencing thing where you can get people's opinions, or is it purely you kind of do it and then sit on it and taste it?
When I develop a recipe for like a liqueur, that's all me. When I make a cocktail with it, like I often have Suzanne taste it or Carolyn. They're the owners of the restaurant, and I get feedback. But I'm at a point right now that they're like, yeah, it's great. Thank you. Like, that's delicious. Just leave it on the table.
They trust you.
Well, too many cooks spoil the broth. There's never been a truer statement, I think, about that. And sometimes even in writing songs and that, like.
So how do you guys do that?
Well,
Because you guys got 4.
We drink a lot of vermouth. And
We write our own songs. That's the key.
So everybody writes their own songs.
Yeah,
Pretty much,
No
yeah.
kidding.
Or it's almost exactly like what you're talking about here, which is that the recipe you're making is individual,
Right.
and then when you know the final production, the cocktail is maybe some feedback. Same with us, we write individually and then we collaborate on the production. So if we're not changing the essence of a song,
Right.
but selecting kick drum
Right.
treatments or whatever, you know, that's all collaborative because that's kind of the
yeah, it also, well, for us, it's, you know, because there's 4 of us and we each play a different role in the band. If we're going to perform a song, it becomes this thing where we each have to have some, you know, input on it for it to really work, where the group makes sense as a whole. So,
Right.
but at the same time, the creative process, the distillation of an idea, you know, pretty much has to be individual. It's very different. We've tried writing together. It's really hard, you know, because it's an individual thing, really.
I remember last year there was a statistic from Billboard that there was one song on the Billboard Hot 100 that entire year that was written by an individual. Every single other song was written by multiple writers. And I think that
But that's why
an
they all
indication.
suck.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's rare to find a song by more than 2 people that isn't shit.
Well, I mean, I don't know if that's true. I just think that.
What do you think about the Wu-Tang Clan?
Yeah.
But that's not really songs. You got like people. It's still, first of all, like 1 or 2 major factors. You know, it's either the Jizza or the RZA.
Yeah.
that's behind that. And then you've got people doing their verses. But I'm just saying, like, go find me a song written by 5 people that's good.
Right. Yeah.
It's very corporate. It's like music and emotion by committee. You know, it doesn't work.
in the same way, Flavor by committee probably also doesn't work.
Yeah, then you end up like Applebee's or chilies. You know, like it's theoretically good,
Right.
Because 100 people said this works. This is let's move on to segment 2 because we're like an hour in.
Well, yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, this is great.
We probably won't be able to follow our structure the way we
let's
planned
like
it, which is
weave
totally
the segments in.
Yeah, we'll just weave them in because it's probably more interesting just chatting.
We're talking about music, so
Best drinking songs. Huh.
Is that what you wrote?
This is on the list here. Best drinking songs. I think, I still like, it's not really a drinking song, but I associate it with drinking, which is Ray Charles' America the Beautiful.
That's funny. It has no
makes me very
association with
emotional.
drinking, but we're always...
Ray Charles' version of America the Beautiful. We basically play it every time we come back to America from Canada. And we all drink while we're crossing the border and while Ray Charles is singing about America and we're leaving Canada. Yeah.
That's so dope.
We'll have some type of bourbon, on the bus because we always get some American whiskey or bourbon, whatever, from one of the riders. So we'll usually open one of those when we cross the border. Right.
And we'll Crown Royal.
We'll forego the Scotch whiskeys for that 1 minute.
I think another great, in that vein, is Wheeler Walker Jr. Family Tree. That actually gets the whole crew singing along. We won't even talk about it. Just go listen to Wheeler Walker Jr. Family Tree.
If you're offended easily, just don't go. Yeah. Please don't
If you're
go
offended easily, play it to your parents at a loud volume.
So, Christian, what's your favorite drinking song, and is there a playlist at your restaurants?
There's no... that's...
2 questions.
Yes. We have Pandora, and but my favorite list is on Friday night when I'm at Lucques. My GM has something made, and it's like the Velvet Underground kind of thing, and it weaves in like similar time period punk, but not too hard, you know, because like it's a fancy restaurant. So like, people don't want to be rocking out of their chairs. That they're there for a 3-course meal as well. But it has to be. It's definitely fun. I really love that.
Is that thought about? Like, are there types of music or artist songs that they think about
like
that will
different nights? Absolutely. Like on Sunday night we have Sunday supper. It's a 3-course meal, and the clientele is like all regulars that have been coming for 15, 20 years. So we play music that they like. But like on Friday night, we have a lot of music that I like. I love that. Yeah. And then the bar gets busy, and it's definitely music affects the bar a lot.
Yeah, you must notice which songs or which vibes affect how much fun people are having, or even what drinks they might be getting, or what how much they're drinking.
Full moons or other kind of things like that are wives' tales or tall tales or whatever. Like
that affect the drinking habits?
Oh, yeah. Or just, people who get to observe crowds a lot. I wonder what trends you notice,
I have to think about that.
Because there's certain nights where there is insanity in the air.
Yeah,
you feel it.
Yeah, you just you hear it and you feel it. Yeah,
and a bar is going to be like an amplification of what another scenario might be, because liquor is like, as we say, the lubricant, the social lubricant, and it just gets you there.
Don't try to use it as an actual lubricant.
I wonder if you could do weird experiments at bars.
How whiskey dick is.
It burns. Do some kind of experiment where you play different bits of music at bars to try and either incite or calm people down.
Well, what was that? We talked about it on one of the other podcasts, the subliminal sort of effect that music has on even things like purchasing habits, where I think, Dylan, you were saying that like in a grocery store, they did experiments where they played German music, and then they have a French wine and a German wine next to each other. Very hard to distinguish which one's which. And when they played German music, people bought the German wines. Right. When they played French music, they bought the French wine. Yeah. So I wonder if you I mean, that's a whole nother study. But if you want,
really
if you're like this week, we really want to push, you know,
Italian sausages.
Yeah. So we're going to play Mario Lanza, you know.
So let me ask this question. This is kind of in our music business section. Speaking of drinking, as we have been doing for about an hour, have you noticed a difference when you go to shows and when you used to, you know, maybe promote shows in the Netherlands or just even attend them, the difference that the drinking age makes to the feel of the crowd? You know, the fact that you can have 18 to 21-year-olds, and what is the drinking age in the Netherlands?
16.
Okay, so you got 16 to 21-year-olds that are just not at any American shows.
Beer and wine or something like that.
Yeah, but it's really interesting. Like, I grew up without it. There was no thing as like, oh, you have to be a certain age to drink. It's just you have to behave like, when you go out, you behave like a man, and like you don't throw up at the bar. That's what you know, like you know, like, and it's the same, like, or sorry, like man kind of sounds like, but you have to behave like an adult.
Like an adult, yeah.
Yeah, totally. Like, and if a 17-year-old behaves like an adult and like can hold their own, then you know, fine. If they can't, go somewhere else. Go home. Like,
yeah.
And like, it was never like a big deal but last time I was back in the Netherlands, I was at the grocery store and it said like, when you're 14-year-olds, when you're younger than 14, you cannot buy hard liquor or so. Like it's just.
So they put in a cutoff and it was 14. Yeah.
Yeah, but in the end, it doesn't. You know.
I
we
think
all drink wine like when we were kids. Like my dad used to give me wine with water and stuff, and then you don't like it until you're older.
Yeah. And I mean, we've noticed that in countries where the drinking age is lower, that the shows, the entertainment, everything is actually a little bit more fun. Not that I don't think it's directly related to the fact that they're drinking and they're inebriated and they're a little bit, you know, freer. Right. But I think it's actually a mentality, because I think also people have this picture of the Netherlands, which is a similar argument that they're trying to make now with the legalization of marijuana around the country and all that, and the drinking age staying at 21, is that if you do that, it's going to be all out mayhem, and people are going to be, you know, they're going to be drug addicts, they're going to be alcoholics. But if you go to the Netherlands, there's the red light district, there's coffee shops or, you know, weed shops all over the place, but it's incredibly calm and civilized, and
bloody tourists.
Everyone
exactly the tourists that mess it up,
screwing everything.
And it really has no effect, in my opinion. Like, we've been there a bunch now, and it doesn't seem to have any effect on the general kind of psyche of the society. If anything, it's probably led to a little bit more free thought and a little bit more open-mindedness, but it doesn't have this effect that everyone's always so afraid of, which is it's going to be fucking chaos and there's going to be murders in the street and all this other shit.
I think it's more in relation to like the shows, is like you're saying, it's not about the fact that there's drunk kids or 18-year-olds. It's the fact that you can actually have an 18-year-old to 21-year-old at a show. 18 to 21-year-olds are more fun than 21 to 27-year-olds at shows. They've got more energy. They're more willing to have fun. Yeah. So when we play shows in South America or South Africa, you're dealing with a more fun crowd. Yeah. And it's fine, because when I go to shows, I'm the most. I would kick myself if I was watching myself at my own show, because I'm a boring person who sits with my arms
standing
crossed.
in the corner, like, with the beer.
It doesn't help with the like the barricade separation, like in Portland or other states like that, where the drinking people have to be separated by a cage, you know, next to the bar, and so you've got one group
separated by a cage,
not a cage, but they'll
by like a big barrier.
Yeah, they can't. Other places it's just a wristband or whatever, or it's only 21 and over or whatever. And then if you've got an old ages, so you've got to separate them physically. In certain states, and you've got like a Crystal Ballroom when you go play there. It's an amazing venue, and there's a huge walkway down the middle. It
actually just shows an absolute lack of emotional and intellectual maturity, because it's as if a 16 or 18 or 19-year-old can't communicate or interact or be on the same level as a 25-year-old or a 30-year-old, 40-year-old. Like as if the intelligence or the emotional maturity has purely only got to do with their age and not experience and maybe understanding, and the fact that, like you said, when you grew up, your dad gave you wine. It wasn't even thought of. It's act like an adult, and try to be responsible.
It's self-fulfilling when you keep telling kids you're a child, and then they go to college, they turn 21, and they've never had a drink till they're 21, of course.
I've never seen that. I mean, we have like sororities like in the Netherlands, but they really push it here.
we were in San Diego once, and we were at a Middle Eastern restaurant getting like late night falafel. And do you remember this? These German guys came in, and they had these girls with them. American girls, and they'd all been out drinking, and they were all, youngish, like college kids. And I never will forget this. The girl starts throwing up from just being completely drunk in the restaurant on the floor, and the German guy is sitting there eating his falafel, complaining about that it was a combo meal. And he kept saying, "This combo meal is scheiße," and this girl's just like projectile vomiting everywhere.
He looks down and like moves his foot out of the way.
It just did not faze him. And he's like, I expect this from UK girls, not from US girls.
It was weird. It was very weird to watch somebody be that unfazed by somebody throwing up on their shoe.
Yeah, Mo actually went over and tried to help the girl and make sure she was okay and not on the whole floor. And he's like,
the Germans.
So
as soon as he left, the sun came out.
So we
have a history with the Germans in the Netherlands.
The world has got a history with the Germans.
We've got a cliffhanger. We've been dying to know. You've made drinks for the president, former president, President Obama, twice. What did he have to drink?
That's really interesting. You asked me that. I actually made. We had multiple fundraisers here in Los Angeles, and I've made a bunch of drinks. But so I'll tell you how it goes. So they tell you we have an event that we're doing. Can you make cocktails? Yes. We cannot tell you who's coming. Okay. What do they want? Just come up with something like fresh and I met with the DNC, the Democratic National Convention, the head of them. They come to the bar and they taste some stuff and they pick something that actually I'm gonna make. And I remember the first time, they told me I was gonna work one day, and they gave me what they wanted, but I didn't meet anybody yet, and they didn't tell me who was coming, but I knew Obama was in town. And I was like, 1 and 1 is 2. So I had a feeling that it was him. And you come to the house, it was it was really interesting. My first time, the guy who did Glee, Ryan Murphy, I was at his house. It was a fundraiser for the Democratic Party, and Obama was coming, but I didn't know that. But just 2 days before that, Joe Biden came out and he said it's okay for gay people to be married, which is like a big thing back then. So 2 days later, we're at a prominent, everybody was gay, the majority was gay, Hollywood, and Obama had to talk about it because, his vice president just said something and he had to just say something too.
Address it,
So anyhow, that's that's next to the story. So I was making cocktails. I had my cocktails ready. So I go to this house. I bring all my cocktails, and there's guys in suits and ready to go. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure it's Obama. And you're just waiting. They kick you out of the house. Then the dogs come in, and you go back in. And by this time, if you forgot something, you're out of luck because you can't bring anything in the house anymore. So you're standing there and waiting, and you're meeting people, and they're all regulars from the restaurant. So you say hello, and then the helicopters come, and you hear the motorcade coming, and then photographers and press comes in, and then he comes in, and he's quite a charismatic guy. but he drinks water from a bottle.
I love the whole setup with like the whole Joe Biden thing.
Yeah. Sorry, like I went all over the place.
No, it's like, perfect because you like think.
Yeah, but he drinks water from a bottle, and so I made cocktails for the whole event. And then like we had one event as well for him, where supposedly he drank one of my cocktails, but you never really know unless you hand it to him. But like they don't never let you do that. This was like it was in Brentwood, and he flew in to Santa Monica Airport, and there was a shooting at Santa Monica College that day. Jeez. And so we're doing a fundraiser with the president, and we don't know anything what's happening on the outside world. And suddenly these guys come in with duffel bags, like half the size of this couch that we're sitting on, and you know. You're not an idiot. You know what's in the bags. You know, they all bring their rifles, and like suddenly there's snipers everywhere, and we're not allowed to go outside or anywhere. And so there was a shooting in Santa Monica, and he flew out of Santa Monica. So anything close to like where he is, suddenly it was the safest place in the world, basically. Like it was crazy.
Yeah, it's unreal to think that level of security is just.
So you prepared, insane. You got all hyped up that you're making drinks,
totally. Like, and then
drinks, and he can't have any.
But like at that event, like I made a bunch of drinks, and you make a whole tray, and they just send it out to where he's at, and you know maybe just tray is just sitting there. I don't know, like they don't tell you that.
So I mean, the reason obviously is he's avoiding getting poisoned.
Yeah. Like we actually had it's really interesting. We had an event at one of our restaurants with the president, and like 2 weeks before Secret Service comes in, they go under the floor, they go through the ceilings, say this floor, you actually can go under it. Like they have to go under it just to make sure there's nothing there, and they got to go in the ceiling to make sure there's nothing there. They have to go to the dishwasher to see where they can hose somebody down in case there's like a chemical. Attack. Like there's a line that goes from the restaurant to the White House just in case World War III breaks out while he's having a conference or like
having water from a bottle.
It's really, really a whole different level that you've never ever seen in your life before. Except if you do a wedding for George Lucas.
Oh, did you do that?
Yeah, that's interesting too. But that's a whole different story.
Is it at his that ranch that he?
Yeah, Skywalker Ranch.
Yeah. I was trying to think of the name, and it's that one.
Skywalker. Yeah, that one.
So every week we do our favorite piece of gear. We talk about our favorite piece of gear, and maybe we could talk instead of favorite piece of gear, like our favorite liquor and or tool that you think everyone needs to have in their kitchen or their bar. Like it can be a simple thing, it can be a complicated thing, anything you think would be a really useful tool for people to have to prepare
funny
cocktails.
You might ask. A wine opener would be great. I think I have one in my pocket right now. I always put on pants and they're like, oh, there's a wine opener.
You always have a wine opener carried with you.
Yeah, it's something that's just part of your outfit. Because, we're drinking beer right here. I mean, like beers you can open like you can get inventive with that. I feel like.
What's the most elaborate way you open a beer? You can do the water bottle trick or a lighter.
Yeah, you can't really do that behind a bar. Like pretty much as far as you go is like an ice scoop to use the
back of
the side of an ice scoop. You can put it under the cap and pop it. But that's kind of as crazy as it gets.
Have you seen the shoe wine bottle opening?
No.
I don't know how they do it. You'll probably break your wine bottle, but you put a wine bottle in a shoe and they bang it basically, so it doesn't crack, but the pressure builds up and pops the cork out. Just air.
I thought you were going to mention the company that it's a flip-flop.
No.
It's a sandal with a beer opener on the bottom of the shoe.
Yeah.
There's like the dumbest fucking idea ever is that you walk into all these public bathrooms and then you come out and you need to open your beer with the bottom of your shoe.
Hell no. Yeah.
All right, so I guess
if you're drinking beer that tastes like piss anyway, what's the difference?
So you said you have like a rule at home you're drinking like we do, which is just now it's whiskey
exactly
or beer.
Like
so what's your favorite drink right now that you're drinking at home?
I don't discriminate. I drink Heinekens.
You're a very proud Dutchman.
When you open my fridge, there's Heineken, there's cold beers, there's wine. Melissa likes red wine, and there's liquor. And liquor we drink straight. I like Amaros, but if it comes to like liquor, I drink tequila. However, if you want whiskey, I got that too.
I saw a video of you with El Silencio Mezcal. I really like that mezcal, but I was drinking, had a Vida Mezcal the other. I know they make a bunch, but I've really liked the couple that I've tried from them.
It's interesting, like La Vida and El Silencio, La Vida came first, and it was like mezcal is kind of relatively new. I mean, if you look in the broad scope of it, it's not a new liquor. If you look at when you go to Oaxaca, because they've been making it forever.
Yeah.
But if you look as an imported liquor into the United States, it's fairly new. And La Vida did that. Like, they were the first ones. And they try to come up with like something that's you can put in your well. And that's the one you're talking about right now.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, mezcal is agave, right? But it's just not blue agave. Is that the main distinction?
So that
tequila has to be blue agave.
Yeah, tequila is blue agave, made in Jalisco and 3 other states. It's kind of interesting. It's a money thing, and originally it's supposed to be Jalisco, but now there's a few other states that can produce it too, money-wise.
So kind of like the champagne thing, like to call something champagne, it has to be from Champagne, France.
Right, and it has to be, this has to be made with 100% blue agave in order to call it tequila.
And mezcal is what?
So all tequilas are mezcal, but not all mezcals are tequila. And mezcal is also made with agave, but there's like 100-something species of mezcal or agave they can use. And they roast it underground and make it. That's where the smoke comes from. And they use mesquite wood.
It's very similar to the peating process.
I think I'm trying to think of the first time I had mezcal. I think it was in Mexico that one time when I don't think I'd had it before that when we went to Monterey play that festival.
Yeah,
and there was
Josh Homme showed up behind us in line at the bar, and we did mezcal shots. Yeah,
Josh Homme from Queens of the Stone Age, they were playing, and
sorry for Mike.
They were there was some mezcal company that was like sponsoring the show or something, so they had basically an open bar at the backstage, and they gave you these little clay like shot cups. You know, it was like a shot glass with a little handle, and. We took up. You can drive. I think you can drive. I don't know if you can, but we had an open bottle of mezcal on the drive back to the hotel, which I think is legal in Mexico. But
we weren't.
That time it was legal.
That guy is a Viking, though. He's massive.
Josh Homme. Yeah.
I just remember that being a funny night because we all turned.
Well, they didn't even get to play.
Oh right, yeah, that's right. Yeah, we turned around and then Josh Homme, the Viking, was there drinking. Mezcal it had a little skull and crossbones on this tiny little cup, and he just looked even bigger because the little cup was so small.
Yeah, so he's like a giant guy.
It's like an espresso cup kind of thing.
Yeah, and
I think I still have my cup, or at least have a photo of it. We could post it because it's like like a weird, funny. You would call it cute if you saw this cup. And so you see this guy who's like 6'6". That's because Josh Homme he's super tall. Drinking mezcal out of a tiny, cute little cup.
Right. Well, my favorite mezcal actually comes from my handyman. Like they carry it across the border in milk jugs, like or the water bottles, like like the gallon water bottles. Yeah. No label, no nothing. Family made it.
Oh, that's awesome.
We're partially Greek. Where were we?
Oh yeah, that always blows my mind. How you guys are Greek and South African, like you went to high school with my wife. There's a South African band. I'm like,
Raki is the
Raki,
Greek.
Yeah,
it's like the Greek. It's grappa. It's the grape they're all brandies, right? Or raki is grape based. Yeah, anything they take the dregs from wine and they distill it, and pretty much anybody who makes wine makes some sort of liquor.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And we've had some Greek raki out of bottles. You always don't you feel sketched out drinking moonshine? Like it's
I was telling you earlier about Thailand. So I'm like in this village in the north of Thailand, and like we get there and they're like, oh, the white people are here, let's kill the pig. And like so they killed the pig, and then they take the intestines out, and you see these two girls, like there's only one water thing in the village, and they put the intestines on there so it's clean, and I have no idea what they're gonna do with it until later that night after we smoked a bunch of opium and we drank liquor from sandwich bags. I have no idea where that came from, but like, and I don't know how they made it. It just came in like in a little sandwich bag, and you just drank it, like, and
you're still here.
And then and then they got like these calamari looking things, and they're like, oh, you should eat this, it's very delicious. And like, okay, and I'm like chewing it, and I had a flashback to like that afternoon when I saw the two girls like cleaning the intestines of the pig. I was like, oh shit, I'm eating intestines right now.
I thought you were going somewhere way different. I thought the sandwich bags were going to be made out of the intestines.
I mean that's 6 hours right there. That's a good order of events. Yeah. Opium into sandwich bag liquor, pig intestines.
Yeah, I like how it was just that reminds me of that story in Thailand.
Yeah, but like moonshine is kind of interesting though.
Yeah, I remember when we were in Greece.
It was excellent. It was good.
In an island. I don't even actually want to say the name because I don't want anyone to go there.
It's a secret island
and ruin it. But yeah, we got invited up to these people who had a windmill house that was been in the family for 100 or 200 years or something like that, and now they'd turned it into kind of their vacation house. And we went up there, and they had their own little garden, and we were camping on the beach, and they invited us up for breakfast because they saw us setting up and tearing down our tents, and they brought out water bottles, which was raki. Yeah. And I remember that feeling of like, oh shit, I have to drink this moonshine.
Yeah, because you can't say no.
And yeah, we asked him, and the feta that they brought was made by their neighbor who had goats, and then or sheep, and then their other neighbor was the one who made the moonshine in the bathtub. I think they even said, they're like, oh yeah, he makes the moonshine by himself. And we're like, okay, cool. We had to drink it, and it ended up being really good. And
they had a tomato garden.
Yeah,
they had the best tomatoes I've ever had from their garden. I remember and what they used to keep the birds from eating the tomatoes was CDs. Yeah. So like they would hang CDs because they were reflective and they would deter the birds. So they found out we were a band, and they asked for a CD from us. Yeah. And I was just thinking, like, they're just using this to keep birds away from their tomatoes.
To paint a picture of it was a couple, like mid-30s or maybe early 40s.
They were architects.
Yeah, architects, like professionals. They lived in Athens. And then for a month and a half every year, and this is a fairly typical Greek lifestyle, we went there. They have, like Dylan said, this windmill house with a balcony that goes all the way around the windmill. Their day for 6 weeks consisted of moving their table in the shade. That's it. Like literally, there's nothing else that was done during the day.
As the sun goes across the sky, they move the table.
Yeah, move the table.
There's just those big, like 1 liter and 2 liter bottles, water bottles that they just had a whole bunch of them filled with raki that they'd gotten from their neighbors.
I've never seen anyone take relaxing as seriously as the Greeks. And they get a lot of shit in Europe because of all the economic crisis, but fuck the rest of Europe. Like you're living incorrectly if you're not doing what the Greeks are doing in summer. So what's it like to be in a band with your brothers? It's pretty cool. Skip that section.
It is cool.
Yeah. What do you want to know? No.
If you come up with a unique question about that, we'll answer. But that might be very hard.
No. I was just wondering how you write songs and stuff, and like, I always do wonder though, and like when you play the drums, like, why don't you you ever think about just standing in front of in front of the stage and like with a kick drum or so and like sing through a microphone?
Yeah,
because you sing a lot of songs as well.
Yeah, sitting behind the drum kit is almost like a little protective mechanism for me because you feel very safe behind there. You got these things in front of you.
Totally.
So, but over the years, the drum riser has moved up and up and up and up and down or downstage, so that now we like this sort of image where we're all sort of in a row, you know. And
that's kind of dope.
Give it this democratic feel, but. I don't know. I feel like the drum set is such an important part of our sound that if I were to do that, we'd have to hire another drummer, and then it would change the whole dynamic of the band and stuff. So
I don't like that tom thing that people do.
The tom thing?
It's like where they get a bunch of people from the band to go bang toms. If there was a trend like tom drums. Oh yeah, tom drums. They. Well, it was like 3 years where it just seemed like every band had a section where they would go bang a tom in the front of the stage.
They kept then getting bigger and bigger until like Imagine Dragons. We played that show with Imagine Dragons.
I think they were like, we'll do this properly, and they got the biggest drum in the world.
Oh, you like your little toms? They brought a huge fucking like oversized koto drum.
That's not a tom. This is a tom.
Yeah. I've always had the idea, and we're never going to do it, so I think I can just say it, of like setting up our stage with 15 of these massive toms, like we're planning a big finale song.
And just to be like running between them.
but just never play them. Like the entire set, just have drums sitting on stage. So deep thoughts. Didn't someone brought up something that could have gone deep thoughty?
Oh yeah, I feel like we could probably just kind of go over this pretty quickly because I feel like we talked about it on one of the other podcasts. But you brought up the idea of distillation coming up around the world at the same time when they weren't necessarily communicating about it, and so that there's this guy, Rupert Sheldrake, who's kind of making the rounds on a lot of the big podcasts now. He's a scientist, a British scientist, and he has this theory of morphic resonance, which is sort of there's this invisible web of connectivity, and I'm probably going to basically butcher the definition of it, but it's something like this. There's this invisible web of connectivity that connects species on a certain plane to where they can communicate new skills or anything that they learn, that there's a sort of memory to it. And so he's done all these studies where, for instance, they'll train rats to do something in one part of the world, like go through a maze or do some complicated activity where they get better at it over generations. And then people do the same experiments in different parts of the world where the rats are not related in any way, and they get quicker and better at learning it. Right. And so the whole species seems to acquire a skill. Right. And so there's quite a lot of evidence, seemingly hard studies showing this phenomenon, and it's maybe a little more subtle or a little harder to define in human activity. But for instance, it seems such a common story that major advancements or major technological advances or ideas or political ideas seem to spring up around the world without there necessarily being communication. So I thought this distillation could be like a spring-off point for that.
Well, do you ever look at the pyramids and stuff?
Yeah. We talked about the pyramids on a lot. How there's all around the world pyramids.
In Cambodia, in Egypt, in Mexico. Like, it's kind of crazy in a way.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's... I'm not at all opposed to the idea of...
aliens?
Well, don't get... Yeah,
sorry to bring it up again.
Yeah, I like aliens, but...
don't get him started.
But the pyramid thing is bizarre, and the serpent imagery around the world. There's serpent imagery everywhere. Yeah, usually somewhere on the pyramids. But that ancient civilization, for me, seems like the obvious explanation for certain of these things. I know Graham Hancock. Have we brought him up? He's really the kind of the modern advocate of these ideas. He wrote a book in the 90s called The Fingerprints of the Gods, and then he's since written different books along those lines and revised some of those theories. But his explanation for that phenomenon, which is pyramids and similar architecture and on all of this around the world, was that there was a global civilization that was
wiped out.
Wiped out. And there now I just saw at the University of Chicago, they published a study saying that multiple fragments from a comet impacted Earth 13,000 years ago and melted the polar ice caps, like that, which is something Graham Hancock and Randall Carlson, and I can't remember the original guy who was an advocate of that theory, was saying. So now it's the mainstream is legit, because Graham Hancock is not an archaeologist or an anthropologist. He's a journalist, so he's not held to the same scientific rigor, obviously, but he's a provocateur, and it seems like a lot of his ideas are gaining mainstream credibility now.
Well, yeah, so the idea that the comet hit, or fragments of a comet hit, melted the ice caps, and that caused the flood, which the idea of a flood seems to exist in the mythology of almost every culture around the world. You know, it's in the Bible, it's in the Aztec culture, they talk about floods. You know, all these disparate cultures that are thousands of years old have a very similar story of a flood around about the same time.
Well, the Aboriginal one is quite bizarre because their oral tradition has preserved stories of floods for thousands of years, and then they found archaeological evidence of that having happened 30,000 years ago, where there was another impact causing like a cataclysm 30,000 years ago. So yeah, it seems.
I can't remember what I had for breakfast yesterday, and these guys are.
I know I'm gonna have Trejo's like breakfast burritos in a second.
I guess I kind of derailed it away from the idea of morphic resonance or whatnot, but
well, I mean, I think us talking about like. We can point you in the direction of going to
go to the source.
Go listen to somebody who really knows what they're talking about, because it's fascinating. I thought the Rupert Sheldrake on Joe Rogan was really good. He, he kind of brought Joe Rogan's podcast almost to a different level. Just he's so eloquent and so interesting, and he's very like he has all the sort of citations and stuff that you need to back these studies up, whereas I'm just a guy on a podcast saying, "Hey,
do I remember that? What did he say exactly?"
There's another guy, Michael Persinger. He's really weird too. We talked about MK Ultra in last week, did we? Or the thing we did earlier today, but you'll be hearing it this week and so on. But he has got similar ideas, which is that the magnetic field stores information, and that if you can accurately access it, you could get thoughts from people. So he's done these experiments where he puts a rotating magnetic field around people's heads and puts them in a Faraday cage. It sounds fucked up. And it rotates at 7 hertz, which is meant to resonate with the magnetic field surrounding Earth, and it's meant to. Then they do remote viewing experiments, which came about from the MK Ultra experiments. So it is a very interesting idea that if there's a field, a magnetic field maybe, or some other field which contains information, you could theoretically access it. Because if I told you that there is a sound wave and you can discern micro movements of air with an instrument on the side of your head, and I can communicate with you at a distance, it's kind of a crazy idea, because the total sound pressure currently, the air pressure currently dwarfs the changes that occur when you speak or when you make noise. Those are minute changes in air pressure that we're able to detect compared to the total
or
air
on
pressure.
A more subtle level, Wi-Fi. If you were to go back 50 years,
right, yeah.
50 years ago, and you told someone that all you needed was an 8-digit password to access the the world's information and memory that exists in this field, or this resonance and this frequency, that all you need is a password. So maybe all you need is a password.
The distillation, though, is an idea, right? I mean, it's an idea. So what if the idea comes from a person and is projected outwards? Maybe it's available to another person on the other side of the world.
The interesting thing is, like, not everybody has access to this. Because there are certain people that are more maybe in tune.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Or you need. You're right. I think there is a very similar story with special relativity. There was somebody in Europe working on that same idea at the same time as Einstein, and there was no communication. Right. So, special relativity is not going to happen to me because I don't have the vehicle necessary to receive that idea. Right.
Well, I think what you said is that's a important point of all this. Is like we talked about this before. Like if you said yes, humans can dunk from the free throw line.
Right.
No one would believe you unless you saw Michael Jordan do it. You know?
Oh, yeah.
So there's different abilities and sensitivities,
Right.
and if perceiving these sort of hidden magnetic waves, it requires a certain sensitivity, then that either needs to be trained or you need to be born with it. So that's where I'll leave that. Like, maybe it's out there. Just because everyone can't do it doesn't mean it's not possible.
I think Danny had an interesting point. Is obviously we need the rigor of scientific method, but it's great when someone like Graham Hancock and Randall Carlson are kind of vindicated after years, because you need people also just on the edge, willing to go down some of these slightly crazier ideas and not be too fettered by having to like fucking prove everything constantly. Like, we need that, but you also need people just living out on the edge.
Right.
And that's where I come in.
I love it. I didn't even smoke weed yet. Like, we have this conversation.
I think we're going to have Christian back, because we obviously just scratched the surface with his stories. I mean, just like in an hour, we jumped from Thailand to the Netherlands to bartending to a carny to a clown to everything. And I have a feeling that is just the surface of the stories that we can get out of Christian. So maybe we'll have you back either when you're closer to, or when the book gets published.
I would love to.
Yeah, and if you guys are in LA, obviously go check him out at Lucques and A.O.C. and the Tavern. He'll be mixing you the best drinks you've ever had. And I actually have to say, I'm kind of embarrassed because I haven't been yet. My brothers have, and I've not been going because my girlfriend would kill me. Before she knew that I knew you, she's been begging me to go to these restaurants.
For real?
And I was like, yeah, we should go there. You know, my friend Christian works there.
Actually know somebody there.
Yeah. And so now that now that the opportunity's there, or that she knows about it, if I went there, she'd be like, fuck you. So I have to wait. But maybe next week when she's in town, we'll come by and we'll visit.
I would love
you,
that.
But, yeah.
Well, we'll trade. We'll play. This is kind of an unfair
Don't make any promises.
We'll play a song. You mix us a drink.
I love it.
All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Tell your friends about this podcast. Things spread when you tell other people about these things.
You don't listen to our ideas about people getting ideas, without communication.
Out of space.
Go use the traditional methods and tell them with your words.
All right. See you next week.